Alright, let's get to it. Welcome back if you're a returning viewer. If not, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 books that I feel are underappreciated, underrated, overlooked if you will, and tell you why I think you should check them out, because these are 3 books that I have loved when I have read them, I have felt passionate about, they have moved me, they have touched me to the deepest pits of my soul, and I want to share that with you because I feel like more people should read these books. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with Novel 11, Book 18 by Dag Solstad. Contrary to what the title will have you believe, this book is not part of a series. It's just called that. Why? I'm not really sure. Probably something to do with postmodern literary deconstructionism or something super complicated like that. But I read this book over winter break 2 years ago, and I didn't want to think too hard about it. I just wanted to enjoy it as a reading experience, which I certainly did. This book follows a man going through a midlife crisis. Great, get in line. I know, that's all what adult literature is nowadays. But the way that Solstad writes about this man, the tone that he takes is so unique. It's so almost unsettlingly aloof, cold, and just off-kilter a little bit that made reading this book such a captivating experience. If you've ever watched a movie by Yorgos Lanthimos, the Greek director from Dogtooth and The Lobster and The Favorite, kind of the tone of those movies is almost similar to the tone of this book. And while we're following this man going through his crisis or whatever, we get a lot of subtle but very powerful commentary on consumerism, anti-consumerism. It's critical of work and work culture, government work, why we take on the roles in the society in our lives that we do. Is it really a choice or is it more by chance? And I think it's a very thought-provoking book in a way that doesn't beat you over the head with it. It's a very short book. It's only about 160 pages long, so you can get through it in a day or two if you're really dedicated to it. Dag Solstad is a Norwegian writer, and when you're talking about Norwegian literature, everyone talks about Karl Ove Knausgaard, and for good reason too, but I think Solstad should be in that conversation as well. The book cover caught my eye. They say never judge a book by its cover. Screw that. That's what I did. It looked cool, so I picked it up off the shelf, and I read it, and I loved it. And I hope you love it too. Up next, we're going to talk about Devil House by John Darnielle. John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats fame, singer-songwriter, has taken a turn to the written word over the past 5 or 6 years. I think his first book came out in like 2015. Oh, that would be 8 years. Wow, time flies. If you haven't listened to the Mountain Goats, go do that. Why haven't you? They're my favorite band of all time, and I was reading this book, Devil House, last summer, and I was in the process of reading it when I went to go see the Mountain Goats live, which was, and I say this without hyperbole, the greatest night of my life. Devil House follows a true crime novelist who, for his upcoming project, is living in the titular Devil House, where a number of grisly murders took place, and he's living in the house to have a deeper, more enriching writing experience or whatever. But then the book questions why he's doing that. This book. It's a book about a book, or a book about an author writing a book, and there's another book he's already written that's talked about in the book. The whole thing's very complicated. But Devil House, the book, is more about the ethics of writing stories, especially true stories that might not be ours to tell, and in a time where true crime podcasts and YouTube channels and everything are getting all the more popular, and more criticism, rightful criticism in my opinion, is being levied against them for the tone and the nature they approach these stories with. I think Devil House kind of takes a step back from all that, from being in the crossfires of the discourse or whatever, however you want to talk about that, and paints a really beautiful, tragic almost picture of this author who is probably writing about something he shouldn't be writing about. This book kind of got panned when it came out on Goodreads, if that's a level for reception. I don't know, I just browse it every now and then. You look at the cover, it kind of evokes those like 70s, 80s Stephen King type novels. You're kind of expecting some sort of crime fiction, some occult fiction in there maybe, and none of that was in the book. So if people felt misled by the cover or the marketing of this book, I feel for them. And the novel is structured in a very interesting way. It's divided into 7 different sections, and the book kind of mirrors itself, where the first and the last section are following the same thing, and then the second and second to last are doing the same, third and third to last, and then the middle chapter, this really strange, completely different from the rest of the book section. It's written in this like strange font. You can see that. The whole book isn't written like this. It's only like 10 pages, so don't let that turn you off. But that was probably my main gripe with the book. But I think John Darnielle is one of the greatest living storytellers, whether that be through song or through the written word. He's now in his 3rd book. His first book, Wolf and White Man, I also loved, but was pretty well received when it came out. Got a bit of attention, nominated for a National Book Award, so I don't really think it fits the underrated criteria for this video. Finally, we're going to talk about Sula by Toni Morrison. Now, some of you might be saying, Matt, how can this book be underrated? It's by Toni Morrison. She has a Nobel Prize for literature. And to that, I say, yeah. But when people are talking Toni Morrison, they almost always talk about Beloved, or Song of Solomon, or The Bluest Eye. And for good reason. Those are fantastic books. But I don't hear Sula included in that conversation as much as the rest of her books. So in the context of her bibliography, I think Sula is certainly underappreciated. And now I've heard it's been taught in some high school classrooms. I was never taught this book. I just came across it on my own when I was getting into Toni Morrison. I have a friend who's a student teacher now. She's teaching Sula to her, I believe, 11th grade classroom. So hopefully for a newer generation, this book might not be underappreciated. It might be appreciated. But, if it goes how teaching books in high school goes, people are of course, not going to read it, and then they're going to miss out on great literature, like I did in high school. I did not read the books in high school. I think Sula is the book I have returned to the most. I've read it now 4 or 5 times, and each time I'm finding something new to hold on to, or revisiting a favorite line or passage that just gets all the more beautiful the more I read it. This is one of the most heartbreaking, impactful books written in some of the most beautiful and poignant prose that I've ever encountered. The book follows a friendship between 2 young girls as they grow up. Sula, the titular character, and her friend Nell. And we see how their friendship develops and is shaped by external forces pressing upon them. The forces of family, of tradition, of race and class. And the whole book paints this portrait of a friendship as it grows, as it diverges, as it comes back together, and how these 2 women end up in their lives. Again, this is another short book. It's only 174 pages. It's another one that you can read in a day or 2, but I'd suggest taking your time with it, really soaking in every word, because the craft which Morrison puts into this is nearly unrivaled. So those were 3 books that I feel are underappreciated. Check them out, I hope. Hopefully I convinced you about something to take a look at one of these. If there are any books that you think are underappreciated, put them in the comments. If anyone got this far, I hope you do that. I'd love to check them out. I'm always extending my reading list to my own detriment. I feel like I should get outro music, but I don't. So, thanks for watching.